This video is sponsored by Motion Array. It feels like every day a new version of the same products that we already own are coming out. So it's honestly becoming really difficult to keep up and keep upgrading. And there's always that pressure to have the latest tech. And this week, Insta360 just dropped their newest smartphone gimbal, which is the Insta360 Flow PRO. Now this is meant to be a successor to the Insta360 Flow, which came out about a year ago now, which was Insta360's AI gimbal that could automatically track you. And for a lot of people, it was the best smartphone gimbal that they had seen. But now Insta360 is releasing the Pro version of that, and we've already seen a ton of companies already follow this model. Apple with your iPhones, iPad, and your MacBooks. You have the regular version of the product, so your iPhone 14 or 15, for example, and then the Pro version, the iPhone 15 Pro. Now, usually these products look pretty identical to the lesser version with just more additional features that give them that Pro badge. So in this video, we're gonna figure out, is the Insta360 Flow Pro actually worth upgrading to if you already have the Flow? And does it really deserve that Pro badge? Now, I don't want to dive too deep into what's the same because there are a ton of similarities between these two gimbals. They're honestly pretty much the same from a physical perspective. When they're in my camera bag, I honestly can't tell which one is which. So this is the Flow Pro and this is the Flow. I'll have some more detailed and zoomed in B-roll, but in my camera bag, I honestly can't tell which one is which sometimes, and I have to usually read the inscription on them to see which one is the Pro. So if you see from this, one of them says Pro and the other one does not, and that's usually how I tell the difference. There's also an NFC reader on the Pro, and we'll get into that in a second as one of the new features. But essentially from a physical perspective, they look exactly the same. Even from an operational perspective, they're almost identical. It's pretty much the same thing. So if you have the Flow, you have the magnetic clamp, which you put your phone onto. That was a nice fail. Which you put your phone onto, sticks onto the gimbal. It still has the same extendable selfie stick. Nothing has changed there. And the tripod still has, or the gimbal rather, still has these tripod legs that extend out. So you can set it down on a surface if you don't have your own tripod. And obviously they still have the quarter screw at the bottom. So you can screw this into a tripod, set it down, and have it automatically track you, which is how I usually use this gimbal. Also, this is really fun to do. So let's dive into what's actually different and what the three major upgrades on the Flow Pro gimbal are that give it that Pro badge. So first off, which I think is the best feature and the only reason I would get this gimbal, in my opinion, over the Flow, is that the Flow Pro now utilizes something called Apple DockKit. Now, if you don't know what this is, don't worry, because I had never heard of it until Insta360 sent me this gimbal. Basically, Apple DockKit is something that Apple created that lets you interact with their camera apps and other camera apps using third-party accessories like the Flow Pro. Essentially, all that means is that you can now utilize all of the features like the tracking of the Insta360 Flow Pro in the native iPhone camera app, which I thought was honestly incredible because I like to use the original iPhone or the built-in iPhone camera app to film all my videos. I like the settings, I know what I'm doing, and I like the video quality that comes out of it over third-party apps. This feature is especially useful for pro iPhone creators that use different camera apps like the new Blackmagic camera app as well as the Final Cut camera app. So if that's you and you're a pro mobile creator that wants to use those apps, you're not limited anymore by the Insta360 apps and the functionality that's in there. You can use all the great tracking features of the Insta360 Flow and the Insta360 Flow Pro, which is the whole differentiator here, using Apple DockKit in those apps, which I think is awesome. Now, Apple has taken this a step further, or Insta360 rather, with the introduction of the use of Apple DockKit in the Flow Pro. It also works with other third-party camera apps. So for example, you can use the tracking feature on Instagram. If you want to go live on Instagram and you want to walk around in your environment while doing that, well, you can do that now with the Flow Pro. Same with your Instagram stories. If you want to set this down, you want the tracking to work while you're filming your Instagram story, it'll do that. It also takes this a step further by working on communicative camera apps. So for example, Zoom. If you're on a Zoom call you want to set this down on your iPhone, you can walk around and the Flow Pro will track you. So essentially anything that uses the camera app on your iPhone, the Flow Pro can now use tracking on that, which I think is actually a really good improvement over the original Flow. And I do think that that feature is worth the Pro badge. Okay, let's move on to the next feature that Insta360 has stuffed into the Flow Pro to give it that Pro badge. And this is called 360 infinite pan tracking. Now, most smartphone gimbals on the market out there, or most that I've seen anyways, that use tracking are limited to a certain degree range. So you can't go beyond that and then it gets stuck, and if you walk out of frame, the camera is gonna lose you. The Flow Pro now has 360 infinite pan tracking, and you guessed it, you knew I was gonna do that because it's way too much fun. But now it can basically track you no matter where you go. So this is great if you're in a large environment. Let's just say you're a real estate agent and you're walking around a property and you wanna make a circle around your camera without having to walk back. It's really great because it doesn't interrupt the flow of your video. And I just understood why Insta360 calls this the Flow. I honestly didn't get it before, but yeah, well done. That's actually quite clever. Now, speaking of interrupting your flow, titles and effects are really key to keeping your viewer engaged and keeping your video moving along nicely, which is why the sponsor of today's video is Motion Array. Now, Motion Array has been a long time sponsor of this channel at this point, and I love to continue working with them because I really believe in the product. Motion Array is something that I didn't have when I was starting my YouTube journey, and they make making videos like this so much easier. They have a huge library of stock footage, license-free music, sound effects, video templates, and the list goes on. My favorite part is honestly how easy it is to use. You can go on their website, search for literally anything you need, and you can drag it and just simply drop it into your editor. The use cases and the way that you can use it is so simple. In the past, I would literally have to go online and search for hours for a specific asset. In their library, everything is in one place, which is super useful if you're a new creator and you don't know where to go to get certain things like I did when I first started. I had no idea where to go. So Motion Array really makes that whole process of finding everything a lot easier. Now, if you're somebody who's skeptical and you're unsure of if this is a service you want to dive into or use, well, Motion Array is actually completely risk-free. You can set up a trial at absolutely no cost and see how it goes. Now, obviously, you're not going to get all of the assets and the full library that Motion Array offers, but it gives you an idea of how you can use Motion Array to make making videos a lot easier. And if it turns out that you can't live without it, like I can't anymore at this point, well, there's gonna be a link in the description below where you can save yourself 50 bucks. So hopefully you do enjoy that trial. And if you do, make sure you check out that link below. Once again, huge thanks to Motion Array for continuing to be a partner of this channel and for sponsoring this video. Okay, let's move on to the third and final biggest change with the Insta360 Flow Pro from the Flow. And this is the introduction of the NFC reader. Now, we talked about this at the beginning of the video. The NFC reader does have a few different use cases, especially since there's this ring LED light around it, which gives you a couple of status updates, which I think are pretty cool and really intuitive. Now, the first use case is obviously really simple. You simply tap your iPhone on the NFC reader, and that lets you pair your iPhone with the gimbal. It's honestly one of the coolest ways that I've seen pairing an iPhone with a third-party accessory. I think this is honestly brilliant, and a lot more devices should incorporate this. This is also how you pair with Apple DockKit to use all those third-party camera apps that we talked about at the beginning. Now, once your iPhone has gone through that pairing process, anytime you actually slap on the iPhone onto the magnetic clamp and actually attach it to the gimbal, this NFC reader light will turn a solid green, meaning that the iPhone is connected and it recognizes that the device is on the gimbal. I think this is really simple, but really effective. You should know if your phone is connected to your gimbal or not without having to jump into an app to confirm this. So this little feature of just a solid ring LED green light is really intuitive and really useful, and I wish it was something that more devices would incorporate just to let us know. It's exactly like tally lights on a camera. So right now I'm filming on the Canon R5C and I know that my tally light is red, so I know for sure without a doubt that I'm recording. Just these kind of feedback tools can be really useful in a pro scenario when you don't have time to go and check on your device to make sure that it's actually paired. So that's awesome. Now, the second indicator that the LED ring light gives you is when it's tracking. So when you have a camera app open, and let's just say you're an Apple DockKit, you have the iPhone camera app open and your phone is on the gimbal, the green light will start blinking when the tracking is active and it's locked on. Again, really simple, but it's really important feedback for you to know that the phone is going to be tracking you or not. So the question that everybody is going to be asking, are the upgrades in the Insta360 Flow Pro significant enough for you to upgrade from the original Flow? In my opinion, they're not, but I don't think I'm the target market for this gimbal. I don't work in a large environment where I need 360-degree tracking, nor do I use my iPhone that often for filming. And when I do, I don't really need to utilize any kind of tracking. But if you're somebody that goes on Instagram Live a lot or makes a lot of stories where you wish you had these features, or let's just say you're in a lot of Zoom calls, I just personally sit at my desk, I'm not moving around, where you're in a large environment and you need to be tracked, I think this gimbal is absolutely incredible and absolutely worth it. Now, if you already own the Flow and you don't need these features, you don't need to get out and go buy the Flow Pro. However, if you don't have the original Flow, I do think that this is the gimbal you should get. The features are definitely worth the upgrade if you have no gimbal, and this is the one that I would spring for. Anyways, that's it for this video. Hope you guys learned something. I'll see you in the next one, and until then, keep creating.